Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this Saturday, February 14th, and a happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. Hope you've had a wonderful, relaxing day so far. We're glad you're stopping by for coverage of what is set to be SpaceX's 600th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast this evening. Our photographers have this evening off, given this is a West Coast venture, and it's been a very strenuous 24, 48 hours, however long it's been since all the missions from here in Florida and elsewhere around the world. And so I appreciate them for all their hard work. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as SpaceX prepares to launch a midnight flight of its Falcon 9 rocket, heading into the overnight hours from Sunday into Monday morning. If you're not following the photogs on X, you can find them at their handles here. John is at John Pisani Photo, Adam is at Aburn NYC, and Michael at MD Kane Jr. Also, if you're not already following us, you can find us on X simply at Spaceflight Now. We're also on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook, for those of you who are not on X. Want to also thank our moderator this evening, Jeff Hansen. Appreciate you taking the time to join us and help keep things kosher in the live chat. You can help Jeff and any of the other mods that cruise on in throughout the course of the coverage just by following our live chat rules. We ask that you please post your message in English so that the mods can respond as appropriate. We also ask that you please don't delve into topics of overt politics or religion, and kindly don't use all caps in your messages. Emojis are perfectly fine. We just request that you don't create a huge block of them so it takes up a large chunk of the chat. And last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated, and we'll all get along swimmingly. Certainly appreciate the more than 1,300 of you who are watching along with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Last little bit of housekeeping. I want to thank one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for being with us in the chat. And a big thanks to our channel members writ large for your ongoing support of what we do here at Spaceflight Now. So big thanks to folks like Arlene Pryor, Just Sherry, Sulfur for Lunch, M120407, Michael Cisneros with us tonight, Ken Urbanek, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Speaking of channel members, channel member Joni13 has been with us now for 14 months at the mission specialist level, saying thank you for the stream. Spaceflight Now is awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Joni. And thank you as well to channel member Michael Cisneros for a very generous $20 super chat. Really appreciate that, Michael. Thanks for supporting us at that level and for being a channel member, of course. Right now, SpaceX is currently fueling its Falcon 9 rocket. They're at Space Launch Complex 40 at Vandenberg Space Force Base On the weather front, things do look a little bit cloudy over the Vandenberg area, something that teams are no doubt keeping a close eye on as they decide to progress through the fueling process tonight. Taking a look here at the satellite loop from NOAA's GOES West satellite, you can see the cloudy conditions that I'm talking about. The rocket's going to be heading out on a southerly trajectory once it does leave the pad. The booster, of course, targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You, positioned out in the Pacific Ocean. Time now T minus 23 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. Thanks to channel member and moderator Jeff Hansen for the $10 super chat. Jeff says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed 1081. 1081 is the tail number of the booster that is flying today. It'll be making its 22nd trip to space so far, just missing out on becoming a member of the Falcon 9 Frequent Flyers Club. Have to see one of the following boosters drop off and have some type of either anomaly or be intentionally expended for that booster. The booster flying today, 1081, to make it onto this list. SpaceX continues to work its way towards certifying its Falcon 9 first stage boosters towards 40 flights apiece. Same is true with their payload fairings as well. As we've gone through a number of milestones in the count tonight, there are still several ahead of SpaceX before they're able to launch this Falcon 9 rocket. So let's quickly step through what has already gone by and bring you up to speed on what's still out ahead. Of course, the go-ahead for fueling was given at about or around T-minus 38 minutes, with tanking starting at T-minus 35 minutes, with a loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages, and liquid oxygen on board the booster. T-minus 30 minutes was when they started to load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage, and did the same for the second a few minutes after that. The helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. 23 minutes before liftoff was when the second stage RP-1 tank should have reached flight levels. T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill-down process is set to begin. This is when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 at this point in the count, we would be seeing the so-called big vent as the feed lines are being chilled down. That 4-minute vent will wrap up and LOX will begin to flow at around T-minus 16 minutes. T-minus 7 minutes is when SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the booster, and that helps to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strongback, otherwise known as the transporter erector. Here at Vandenberg, once the clamp arms open up, that large truss structure will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before the rocket's departure, the first stage liquid oxygen tank will be full. Same will be true on the second stage, about a minute after that. At this point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 has entered into its automated startup sequence, Control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will confirm that they are go for launch, if that is in fact the case. At T minus 45 seconds, the engine ignition command will be given at T minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff at 5:59 p.m. Pacific, 8:59 p.m. Eastern, 01:59 UTC for our friends around the world. That's coming up in just about 19 minutes from now. One thing to note about the liftoff time here, all of these include 59 seconds. So really, unless you splitting hairs and you had a camera that was looking to take pictures of the rocket at the second it lifted off, it's basically 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 0200 UTC for all practical purposes. But since we like precision here at Spaceflight now, we'll include the seconds, and therefore it is the time you see here on your screen. Just about 18 minutes remaining on the clock. It sounds like some of our friends near Vandenberg are seeing some good signs of fueling progression, so that's certainly good news as SpaceX is now less than 18 minutes away from launching their 600th Falcon 9 rocket to date. Want to welcome in a new channel member, Lady May 42, joining us with membership at the mission specialist level. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Tonight's launch of a Falcon 9 rocket will feature the flight of 24 of SpaceX's Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites. For those who are familiar with these broadcasts, you'll know that SpaceX no longer shows live views of Starlink satellite deployments, so we'll rely on an update a little bit more than an hour after liftoff for them to confirm that the 24 Starlinks on board have been successfully delivered to low Earth orbit. Tonight's launch is the 13th Starlink flight of the year so far. Prior to this rocket's departure and deployment, SpaceX has sent 323 of its Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit so far this year across a dozen missions. These optimized versions of the Starlink V2 Mini are considerably lighter than their predecessors. With their wingspan, or their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. These satellites use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering and were built in Redmond, Washington, in the facilities that you're seeing here on the screen. Satellites flying tonight will be deployed at an altitude of about 163 miles or 262 kilometers at an inclination of 97.3 degrees. There are those thrusters I mentioned. Tonight's launch comes just about half a day or roughly 5-ish hours after the Dragon Freedom spacecraft first arrived at the International Space Station. Contact and capture was noted at 3:15 p.m. Eastern, 2015 UTC. And a couple of hours later, the Dragon hatch was open and the crew floated on into the International Space Station to begin their roughly 8-month or so long duration mission on the orbiting outpost. So big congrats to NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway and ESA astronaut Sophie Adno, marking the beginning of their first trip to space. And a congrats and welcome back to NASA astronaut Jessica Meir, the commander of Crew 12, and the other mission specialist, Andrei Fedyaev, for the start of their second flight. And of course, congrats to all the ground teams, the hundreds, if not thousands, of women and men who made that flight possible across both SpaceX and NASA. And the international partners, of course. Just under 14 minutes remaining to the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket tonight. Want to thank Carl Wilburn, 4140, for the $10 super chat, who's checking in from the Torrance refinery with my teammates. We're ready to take it all in. Go SpaceX. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Hop back in the chat. Let us know what team you're representing. It's like a local club soccer thing, pick up basketball team. Looks like we've got folks checking in from all over tonight. James Hart joining us from Cheyenne, Wyoming. B2 Photo Girl joining us from Edwards Air Force Base. A number of folks in Utah. Sheila from the University of Tennessee. Let us know where you're watching from tonight, whether you're out in California or much further flung. Time now, T-minus 11 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. As I mentioned, the Falcon 9 first stage booster that is flying tonight's mission is making its 22nd trip to space and back. Tail number B1081. As our moderator, Jeff Hansen, noted in the chat, this is among the boosters that are still currently flying. The only one that has launched from all three of SpaceX's current launch pads here in Florida as well as in California. So let's go ahead and take a beat to talk about the booster history for this particular first stage. It started with the launch of Crew 7 back on August 26th of 2023. That was the mission that was sent to relieve, among the other members of Crew 6, Andrei Fedyaev. Now returning back to the International Space Station just today. This booster next launched another Dragon mission, this time the 29th Commercial Resupply Services flight for SpaceX on November 10th of 2023. The first Starlink mission was up next, 6-34 in December. That was followed by NASA's PACE mission, the Plankton Aerosol Cloud Ocean Ecosystem spacecraft. Rideshare flight was up next for this booster after it made its way out west, Transporter 10 on March 4th. Starlink 8-1 followed that on April 7th, and then another climate monitoring satellite, EarthCare, this one coming from ESA and JAXA. After that was a mission for the National Reconnaissance Office, the NROL 186 flight, believed to be a batch of Starshield satellites launching on June 29th of 2024. Got a quartet of Starlink missions that followed that. For the next transporter mission, Transporter 13 happened to be the 13th flight of this Falcon 9 first stage. That was followed up by a couple more Starlink missions and then another flight for NASA, the Tracers mission, or the Tandem Reconnection and Cusp Electrodynamics Reconnaissance Satellites. A mouthful. Much better to just call them Tracers. Back to Starlink land for one mission, then another flight for the NRO, more Starshield satellites. Couple more Starlinks, and then the most recent launch for this booster, the Cosmos SkyMed FM3, launching at the beginning of last month. That brings us to today, where in just a little more than 8 minutes, we'll see the launch of Starlink 17-13, SpaceX's 600th Falcon 9 launch to date. This mission is also set to be the 180th launch for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East. And yes, for those asking, as our moderator Jeff mentioned in the chat, we'll have live views and mission audio coming through from SpaceX in about 2.5 minutes, around T-minus 5 minutes. As we're awaiting views from SpaceX, want to thank the more than 3,700 of you who are watching along with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a solid and click that like button and share the stream to allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. As we're getting ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket fly in just about 7 minutes, if all continues to trend well, let's talk about where it's going to be flying, checking in on the trajectory side of things. Falcon 9 rocket's going to be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East, or Slick 4E, there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. It's going to be flying on a southerly, slightly southwesterly trajectory with the first stage booster 1081 set to land on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, a little less than 8.5 minutes after liftoff. Successful recovery on this drone ship would mark the 178th good landing on this vessel. And as we mentioned, SpaceX is also intending to recover the payload fairings, bring them aboard one of their recovery vessels, and then back on through the port of Long Beach and off to SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. Just under 6 minutes in the count at this point. The first stage RP-1 tank should be full. About a minute and a half ago is when SpaceX started to flow some liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps on the 9 Merlin engines to protect them from thermal shock and damage. For those hoping to see a jellyfish tonight, obviously that will be dependent on the visibility in your neck of the woods. So I wish you all the luck in seeing that phenomenon. If you do happen to catch a cool glimpse of the launch tonight, be sure to tag us on social media. We're most places just by searching for Spaceflight Now.
Falcon.
And a lovely but cloudy view over Vandenberg. Definitely some big pockets of blue sky, which is always a good sign. And if clouds were not a factor, I'd say there's a pretty good chance of seeing a nice jellyfish tonight. We'll have to wait and see. Might get to see a little something in SpaceX's tracking video. As you can see, the strong back is reclining away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It'll stay in its reclined position, roughly 13 degrees away, up to and through liftoff. Certainly looks like a seasoned payload fairing. SpaceX typically doesn't talk about the number of flights its fairings have undertaken unless they hit a new milestone, so makes the fairing halves a little bit harder to track than the boosters. 3 minutes and counting.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Good call there. We're waiting to hear a similar call out regarding liquid oxygen on the rocket's second stage. It should be in about 45 seconds.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Seeing some additional venting just almost out of frame. There's the ground gas closeouts.
Gas launch closeouts.
This is SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And we are now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are in fact go for launch, coming in the next few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, listen along with you, and be back on the other side of liftoff.
30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engine full power and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Starlink, Falcon 9, will you be my Valentine?
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
And when do chamber pressures are nominal?
Power and telemetry nominal.
And a good liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. Climbing away from Vandenberg Space Force
Vehicle
Base,
is
now
supersonic.
almost a minute into flight, traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
Call for max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Engines should be throttling back up. Coming up to NVAC chill next, the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine in the rocket's upper stage.
MVAC chill.
And there's that good call out for MVAC chill. SpaceX is coming up to a series of events in quick succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO. That'll be followed by stage separation, and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. The payload fairings will jettison right about at the 3-minute mark. Those first 3 events should start in about 30 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
Good calls, good visuals. MECO stage sep and MVAC ignition. There go the hypersonic grid fins deploying on the booster.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There you see one of those fairing halves falling back to Earth. Like with the booster, SpaceX will recover those and refly them on future missions. You can just see the plume off the left-hand side of the left box just beyond the grid fin. Going out of frame now. Hopefully folks on the ground got some nice views and photos of this launch. The lighting should have been right for this to be pretty spectacular from the ground, obviously depending on visibility. We're coming up on 4 minutes into this flight. The next big milestone in this mission will be the start of the 3-engine entry burn for the Falcon first stage. coming up to the start of the entry burn here momentarily.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Good call for the conclusion of the entry burn. Coming up next, we'll see the single engine landing burn, which will take B-1081 down to the drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Stage 1 transonic.
Boosters
Stage
traveling
2
below
FTS is saved.
speed of sound now. The flight termination system on stage 2 has been safed, no longer needed at this stage of the mission.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good landing, wrapping up the 22nd flight of booster 1081.
I'm back shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And with a good orbit, the upper stage engine will now remain idle during this coast phase, which will last until about T plus 52 minutes and 55 seconds. 1 second burn is on tap, setting the stage for the upper stage to be in a circular orbit and allowing for the release of the Starlink satellites roughly T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, and 46 seconds post liftoff. And with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster, we're going to turn next to our mission stats. They currently stand. Go ahead and start to wrap up our coverage. But before we do, want to thank K2 Hat for the $2 super chat. Who says thanks for the coverage and hello from Miko, Florida. Also want to thank channel member Glenn Ashworth for being a member with us at the pad leader level for 28 months and counting, saying it was a beautiful launch. I have to agree with him on that. Quite lovely. Turning now to the mission stats as they currently stand. with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster that marked the 22nd flight for B-1081. This was SpaceX's 600th orbital Falcon 9 launch to date, the 18th Falcon 9 of the year so far. This was the company's 534th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was the company's 164th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 180th orbital launch for SpaceX from this particular launch site, and the 248th overall orbital launch from Pad 4 East. Here's a look at the bar chart of things, where SpaceX stands now. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 178th good landing on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. That marked SpaceX's 468th good drone ship landing, the 571st booster landing for the company so far, and the 572nd successful landing of an orbital class rocket. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 10th orbital flight from California, the 19th from U.S. soil, the 21st from a U.S. rocket company, and the 35th orbital launch around the world. There have been 3 orbital mishaps so far on the year. Here's where our pie chart now currently stands. Actually, a little bit of a typo there on the U.S. side, but the pie chart representation portion of it is correct. And that'll go ahead and do it for us here at Spaceflight Now for this coverage of the Starlink 17-13 mission. As a reminder, there is another Falcon 9 launch coming right up Sunday going into Monday. Right now, the window for that mission, Starlink 6-103, which has been delayed a number of times for various reasons. That window is set to open up at midnight, so just on that side of Monday, February 16th, for a 4-hour window. SpaceX will, of course, dial that in, and we'll update our launch schedule with the latest T0. And if that does change, then you'll find the latest on that there. I want to thank Amy Rosefan for a $2 super chat, who says was great. And Big Manny, thank you for the $2 super chat as well. Saying great view from Barstow. I want to thank our moderator in the chat who's been helping us out throughout the course of this evening, Jeff Hansen. Hat tip to you as usual, sir. And thanks as well to Cumulus Granatus for answering folks' questions in the chat throughout the coverage. Our thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most of all, big thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention, and look forward to welcoming you back in when next we have a mission to cover. Oh, and Mark Otto was with us here tonight. Apologies, Mark, I didn't see you come in. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, happy Valentine's Day, and bye-bye.